Good morning, everybody. Today, me and my group will be presenting about the agenda setting theory, more specifically, the second level of it. The second level of agenda setting theory is the idea that the media tells us how to think about a story. This is also known as framing, and it is done by placing emphasis on certain aspects of a story, as well as elaborating on and excluding some in order to enforce an opinion the media would like its target audience to hold. This emphasis indicates salience and influences the target audience to form an agenda similar to that of the media's. Framing can be negative or positive, representing certain stories in a light that fits the agenda of the media. For example, a news headline may read, "Unruly mob marches through Main Street and disrupts traffic," alongside a picture of a man yelling angrily. This is negative and would lead readers to believe this protest is harmful, even when it may not be the case. Positive headline of the event would be something like "Protesters march down Main Street seeking justice," with the largest image being that of a father and his son participating in the protest. This presents the protesters in a more positive light and will cause the target audience to see the protest as more peaceful than chaotic. In order to see through framing, an individual must research a topic themselves and discover how certain aspects of a story are being manipulated. The media is constantly trying to force an agenda upon its audience, so it is important that viewers are careful about what kind of biases are being presented in the media they consume.
Our example is a piece of American propaganda from the Cold War. During this period after World War II, the United States of America and the Soviet Union were in an ideological war in which both countries were interested in proving that their ideology was superior. To further their respective agendas, both countries produced mass amounts of media and propaganda that supported their ideological views, which aimed to gather the attention and support of their respective citizens. The example we'll be looking at today is a comic book published in 1947 by the Catechetical Guild Educational Society of St. Paul's, Minnesota. The comic book is titled, "Is This Tomorrow? America Under Communism?" and the front cover is shown on the right side of the slide. The cover shows fighting occurring between American and Soviet soldiers, and it appears as if the Soviet soldiers are winning. In addition, the flag is engulfed in flames in the background. The first page of the comic is on the right, which shows the White House displaying the flag of the Soviet Union, as well as fighting occurring between Soviets and Americans. The text on the page says, "It wasn't long after the end of the Second World War. The communist forces in America seized their chance. The story is sad, the end tragic, but this is the way it began." The remainder of the comic tells the fictional story of how a group of communists invaded the United States, took over the presidency, and gained control of the media production and began to push Soviet ideologies, thus resulting in the fall of American society.
How a comic affected a nation. The comic makes use of framing to portray communism in a negative light, which in turn should create an opinion in the audience synonymous with that of the comic. The language used in the comic suggests communism is associated with corruption as well as world domination. The use of such language is meant to scare the audience and alert them that the matter at hand is quite pressing. The use of framing and language sheds a light of obscenity and destruction over the whole ideology of communism. With that, a fear of communism is born. In this example, framing was used to align the American mindset with that of the media, although a better question to ask would be who set the agenda for the media. The comic was an attempt at convincing people they all have the same agenda, which is a free life in a capitalist society. They used the media used framing to tell Americans how to think about the crisis at hand, which at the time was the Cold War. Why? The media frames because they want to emphasize certain points of the story that align with their agenda. As mentioned earlier, who sets the agenda for the media? Possibly the politicians, as a communist way of life would threaten much of what we know as a Western way of life. It threatens private and individual ownership and threatens a certain way of thinking. It's easier to tell everyone how to think and limit the information circulating around so there is alignment in the material, as opposed to giving everyone the freedom of having untainted information to use to create their own honest opinions.